Okay, it looks like we have most people that have joined. Okay, we are going to be kicking off very, very soon. I'll just give it one more minute. Okay, I think we're ready. Okay, hello and welcome everyone. See, we have quite a number of attendees so far, which is great, and the number keeps growing. First things first, I would just like to make sure that everyone can hear me. Please send a yes in the chat, or a thumbs up, or a smoke signal, anything, just to make sure that everybody can hear me well. Okay, excellent. Looks like everybody can hear me. All right. Now that's out the way. My name is Rudy Mdima. I'm a business relationship and development manager, part of the Red and Yellow's corporate training team. And I'm really excited that you could all join us here this morning to unpack a rather important topic, BEE Skills Development in a Lockdown Economy. Now, this is a continuation in terms of the webinar series that we have lined up for you. A couple of weeks back, we had a CETA funding webinar, which I quite enjoyed, and a lot of take-ons were had from there. It is part of a much broader series that we are trying to bring up to all our valued clients. We hope this will also help in terms of clearing up the confusion in the space of BEE, and as well as how we can help you streamline the process. In a minute or so, I'm going to hand over to Allison, who is our Chief Commercial Officer, who also heads up our corporate trading team. He's going to take us on a journey which unpacks the effects of COVID-19 on companies' BEE and training initiatives, the ins and outs of BEE skills development, and how we here at Red and Yellow can help you transform. So just one more thing, please ensure that you take as many notes as possible. I encourage that you ask questions. Simply click the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screens, and we will obviously try and tackle as many as possible at the end of the presentation. Lastly, for those who are engaging with us for the first time and perhaps don't know much about Red and Yellow, we are a creative school of business, and we are a private higher education institution with a 26-year pedigree of staying true to our ethos and mission of teaching the great creators, inventors, leaders, and entrepreneurs of the 21st century. So enough from me. Andrew will take it from here, and I truly hope that you enjoy the webinar as much as we've enjoyed putting it together for you. Over to you, Andrew.
Great. Thank you, Rudy. I hope everyone can hear me. I'm not going to check the chat. I know I'll be hounded by my colleagues if there are any issues. I also apologize in advance. Our neighbors seem to have started doing renovations probably a little bit prematurely, so we're still in lockdown 4, and there might occasionally be a banging on the wall next to the city, and there's not too much I can do about that, but hopefully not too bad. As Rudy said, I'm Andrew Allison. I'm the Chief Commercial Officer of Red and Yellow. I've also led our corporate training and skills development offering over the past 5 years or so. I've been doing annual workshops on the state of BEE and skills development over that time. This is the first time that I'm going to be doing a virtual session like this. I'm quite excited about it because it really speaks to a direction that we've been moving in the training for a number of years now. It really feels like it's coming to fruition. It would be better. Certainly, we'd prefer it to be happening under less stressful circumstances, but sometimes this sort of stress is necessary to catalyze change. So today's session will probably run, I'll try and keep my stuff to about 40 minutes, and then Rudy will just run through a little bit some of our products, some of our courses and programs and how we can help you, and then there'll be some time for Q&A, which should bring us up to the hour, and we'll leave you tight at 11 o'clock. Really encourage you, please submit your questions using the Q&A button, not via the chat, we'll pick them up later. We are recording the session, we will share it together with a copy of the presentation itself. And for those of you who've attended one of our BEE sessions in person before, some of the slides that you'll see and the stuff we'll be covering might be familiar, but these really relate to some core skills development fundamentals and principles that do need to be kept in mind when planning and implementing different forms of training. So a lot of the stuff hasn't changed, we're just thinking creatively about how we do it now. And a lot of the stuff, otherwise, as I said, is going to remain the same. There have been changes to the codes. That's the generic codes that came into effect in December, and so we've carried those through. I am aware, just having gone through the participants who've registered, that we're dealing with quite a diverse range of people from different sectors and different industries. So we are going to be looking at this generally, so do need to think about how this unpacks into your respective sectoral codes where you do have them. And also there's quite a range of expertise levels. I know there's some BE consultants, there's some HR directors and managers and practitioners, but there are also some small business owners. So we're going to try and keep it kind of focused around some of the fundamentals. There will be a little bit of technical stuff, but we try and keep it accessible. If you struggle with anything, we're only too happy to pick stuff up afterwards. We hope that for many of you, this is just the first of a process of engagement with us. We really do want to talk more with each and every one of you. All right. This morning, we're going to start by looking at how the COVID crisis and the associated lockdown have affected companies from a training and from a BE perspective. We're then going to look at some of the levers that businesses have available to them to plan their skills development right now. This is the levers that we've kind of identified and are thinking about. By no means an exhaustive list, but hopefully a good start. We'll then go through some of the key terms, the fundamental principles, and then have a look at the learning program matrix, the Rosetta Stone for skills development, as I like to think of it. We then will look at the skills development element and the generic codes, just breaking it down item by item, and then have a look at some training tips and recommendations that you can think about for your own plans for the rest of this year. And we'll certainly be covering these as we go through. I will be kind of jumping around a little bit. I've got my slides and I've got a bit of a script to stick to, but once I get started, my brain does tend to bounce, and I do tend to get quite excited. This is a subject matter that's very near and dear to my heart. All right, so while it's completely understandable that companies look to cut all non-committed or discretionary spend at the moment, particularly during crises, there's never been a more important time in the recent history of civilization for people to learn new future-focused skills. The crisis has in many respects exposed just how poorly equipped we are to deal with and make sense of the world, to process and to adapt to change, and to stay positive, put our heads down, look for all of the opportunities, the silver linings and the green shoots that are to be found everywhere, and they are there. I'm not for a second trying to trivialize it or diminish the impact that the pandemic has had on all of us and how hard it's been and how hard it will be for so many, but rather to use it as a rallying call for all of us to realize that a new world and a new way of living needs new skills and new mindsets. This won't be the last pandemic. There will be more in the decades ahead. They will be more severe. And this definitely won't be the last unforeseen global crisis. But we can all hopefully learn through it how we can better identify our unknown unknowns, the things that we just don't know about and can't predict, turn them into known unknowns, so uncertainties that we're aware of, and we can start to put plans in place to manage, and develop tools for either dealing with them when they inevitably do arrive, or even better yet, to capitalize on them. You can see it. I mean, there are loads of stories of people who are looking at the difficulties now and looking for new ways to innovate and new ways to overcome the challenges that we're all facing. So there's no reason for us not to be optimistic and even excited about the next 18 to 24 months and beyond. And the only way that we're going to successfully navigate as a society what the future holds in store for us is through doubling down on education across the board. Education is a difference between whether the image on the screen right now is something to fear or something to be excited about. Personally, something I'm excited about. Now, this 2007 book coined a term, and the red and yellow guys who signed in are going to be rolling their eyes because I do say this a lot. What got you here won't get you there. It's something of a bit of a mantra within red and yellow. It very much lies at the heart of two of our guiding values, those of consistently curious, of being consistently curious and being relentlessly creative. In short, what it means is that the skills that we've learned and the tools that we've mastered in the past aren't going to be sufficient to solve the problems and perform tasks that we haven't encountered or perceived yet. This can be something of an esoteric and sometimes academic discussion in the context of learning and development, but I think that everyone who's now listening to, I don't know how many, this is the first webinar that I'm presenting, but certainly it's the umpteenth that I've listened to in the past couple of weeks or the past 2 months, and I'm sure for many of you it's the same. We have a new visceral, very real understanding of what learning new skills is about. We've all adjusted to having to work remotely. These sorts of skills, these sorts of mindsets are only going to, we're going to need more of these. We're going to need to be able to adjust and adapt better as the future evolves. Someone a little closer to home would no doubt have had something very similar to say, were he still alive today, and don't we all wish he was. This is no time to take our eye off the need for education, to stop doing it. We just need to think differently about how we do it. All right, I'm going to step off my soapbox for a while now. I hope you're all still with me. I care about this stuff a lot. You've probably picked this up by now, and hopefully we can now move forward, just on a little bit of context setting just around how we perceive education and why we think it's so important and why we think we need to keep doing it now. All right, onto something brand new for all of us. I'm joking, being very facetious, the coronavirus. I'm sure we've all heard more than enough about it, and it certainly isn't my intention to get into too much more detail here. This pesky virus that's ruining all our lives right now. What we're not going to do today is debate whether the cure is crueler than the disease, whether lockdown is right or wrong, just how fatal the virus is, or whether Bill Gates and 5G are conspiring to kill us all. That's what Facebook and WhatsApp are for, and there is no shortage of commentary online that you can go and engage in. That's not what we're going to do today. Rather, we're going to proceed on the basis of a factual scenario that I hope we can all agree on. And that is that, firstly, the lockdown is real, whether we like it or not. And it's likely to continue in some form or fashion for the rest of the year and likely into next year. Even if it does end sooner, which I very much hope that it does, it will take longer than most of us would like for people to resume social and work interaction to the same degree that they did before the 27th of March, if indeed they ever do. And secondly, the economy is in serious trouble, and it will be for some time. All right, not to be the harbinger of doom, but a dose of realism, I think, is needed, and hopefully we've all had plenty of doses of that to date. So, what does this mean for training in businesses? I'm going to share just a few thoughts. This is through multiple conversations over the last few months, and before that we've had with our clients and we've had internally and with our partners. By all means, add your own thoughts and comments to the chat function. This is an evolving space that we're working in, so it's quite possible that I've missed something. All right, firstly, budgets are being frozen or slashed. Companies are keeping their powder dry, and for many that's actually a very smart thing to do. In some cases this will mean reduced or removed training budgets for the rest of the year, and in these cases maximizing your 25% of your leviable amounts skills development is going to be absolutely crucial. Getting as much as you possibly can with your existing spend or your internal training, and preserving your hard fought for rands for as long as you possibly can. So stretch that as much as you possibly can. This should always be the case. You should always be trying to do this, but it's just even more pronounced right now. The next thing that we're seeing is that training is postponed, and all face-to-face sessions, workshops are being cancelled. We've had, we had a lot of workshops, face-to-face workshops slated for the rest of the year. I think in almost every single case they have been cancelled. And that's quite a devastating blow to training plans and to skills development plans, but it's completely understandable under the circumstances. In some cases, this might just mean that the budgets are spent later and the training will go ahead. It also means that a lot of training and skills development plans might end up getting squeezed right into the last few months of the year, which we know from first-hand experience isn't actually all that different from what happens in every other year. But it is something that we can still plan for to some extent. It certainly isn't our preference to do so, but a quiet little plug here for Red and Yellow. I think we've become very, very good at helping our clients allocate their skills development budgets at the 11th hour, sometimes at the 13th hour, and almost always in a way that they still get fantastic benefit from their spend. And so it isn't just a pure tax. For a long time, we believe that companies have delayed moving relatively expensive, work disruptive, physical contact and workshop style training online, but this is all changing rapidly now, very, very quickly, and we think it's overwhelmingly for the better. A recent Forbes article was heralding the death of physical corporate training entirely. I certainly think there's a lot of truth here, but I don't think the death will be instantaneous. And I'm not for a second knocking physical contact training. It absolutely has its place, and I hope that it will continue, and I hope that we will continue to do it in some shape. It's all part of the learning and development continuum. But certainly I think there's going to be a massive reduction in the amount that happens. Then we're looking at wage reductions, furloughs, retrenchments. If you're lucky enough at the moment to not have been affected, then you're in a very, very small minority. From a BE perspective, there are some helpful side effects from this. Lower targets, reduced headcounts to plan with, and to some degree, we've seen some of our creative clients investing in subsidized training initiatives, which are structured into amended remuneration arrangements or retrenchment packages. And this is a smart idea, which we'll discuss in a little bit more detail later, because when executed well, it can help businesses save cost, and very importantly, it can help them save cash or hang on to their cash a little bit longer. And at the same time, develop critical skills in employees who are staying on and who might have time and the need to retrain or upskill. But it'll also help those who've lost their jobs by equipping them with the skills that they'll need to either increase their employability or enable them to be entrepreneurial and earn an income. Plus, it counts towards your skills development targets, which otherwise, if it's just a straight cash retrenchment package or restructuring, you don't get those benefits. We're also seeing training being deprioritized entirely, with people being required to devote more time to keeping the business afloat. And this makes a lot of sense. But it's not a sustainable or desirable long-term solution. And it's worth reminding you, for the benefit of your business and your people, that whilst structured training might need to take a temporary backseat, learning should never stop. Learning includes listening to podcasts, subscribing to emails, reading books, watching YouTube videos, watching Netflix documentaries, and doing courses in the evenings and weekends. And where this is coordinated and facilitated internally, and there's a lot that can be done here. You can recognize the management and the facilitation time towards your unaccredited training targets. So do think about how you do that as well. And fifthly, employees are either too busy or they are not busy enough. Now, this is always the case. These two excuses are always kind of, the I'm too busy excuses are always persistent. And this is a sort of an extension to the point in number 4. There are so many ways that learning can and must continue. And busyness should never be an excuse. And for those who aren't busy enough, there is even less of an excuse. Looking at a downturn in business as some sort of extended holiday or sabbatical is not only catastrophic for a business, but it's also not great for individuals. All right, I'm just going to have a quick check in to see that I've still got everyone. I am trying to work out how I can check. There we go. I'm still used to navigating all of this, checking in the chats. Fantastic. It seems like everyone's still there. Brilliant. All right, let's move on. Okay, BE. And many questions have been asked recently as to whether the regulations will be relaxed and even suspended to afford some breathing room for businesses. Now, I've checked this point with a few consultants, and I'm open to being corrected. I know there are a lot of practitioners who've probably been asking the same question. So if you do have any updates or news, that would be fantastic to share, and we can always share that with everyone afterwards. But as it stands, the short answer is no. If you're looking to maintain or improve your BE levels, which remains as important as ever in an even more competitive economy, you're still going to need to do your BE planning and implement against it. Now, this isn't an analysis of whether this is fair or not, or right or not. It's just what the current status is. Now, a critical point to make at this juncture, because it does amount to a skills development or a BE tip or tactic or even a recommendation. And it might not be popular, and it might feel like a cop-out. But it's still a key strategic decision that a business has to ask itself, and that is, can you afford to drop a level or two? This might not be possible or desirable for any number of reasons. I'm a fierce advocate of transformation, and really would hate to see anything as a speed bump just slow it down. But it is something that a business should look at from a strategic and an operational perspective. There might be reasons to say, actually, this year we're going to drop a level or two because it's that or we go out of business. And staying in business will allow you then to pick up your plans to reestablish your levels next year and to move forward. So ask your business this fundamental question because it will have massive ramifications for your plans, and it might give you a bit more breathing room. But it does come with massive trade-offs that your business may or may not be willing to entertain. All right. So now, assuming we're not prepared to drop our levels, or that we want to, or what are we supposed to do? We're still going to need to do our planning. We're still going to implement our skills development plans. This will mean spending some money. And this was tricky even before COVID-19. Now, I'm not unfortunately going to prescribe some magical elixir or panacea here. I'm not going to kill the problem with a silver bullet, but what I'm going to do is run through a few options and angles that we've been thinking about and discussing with our clients. Some that we thought of, some that have been brought to us, and hopefully this might help alleviate the pain to some degree. If you're able to leave this webinar at the end with at least one idea that will save you some time, some money, or at the very least make you feel like a little bit more comfortable about the challenges ahead, then I'll consider my job done. All right, so these are them. There are 5 levers as we see them. There's nothing groundbreaking there, but just thinking cleverly about them and looking at how they interact with each other. There are a number of ways that you can get quite creative in how you balance things out. So, starting with online learning, because we think that this is probably the most fundamental change that COVID is going to introduce, and it presents a whole lot of new opportunities for skills development, and there are a lot of exciting options. Now, I appreciate. I'm going to start up front. I know this. There are participants here from industries like automotive, where this is a lot harder to do. It's where you need people to train on an assembly line, where you need them to train in technical or mechanical skills. That is a lot harder to do online. Certainly elements of it can be done. And so we really are looking at that office-based initiatives here, but there's no reason why elements of this can't trickle down into training initiatives that might be more historically people-oriented or physically oriented. So there are certainly challenges ahead, and I'm certainly not going to try and propose that we can solve all of them right now. Okay, so once and for all, we're hoping that the current crisis means that many businesses who have been slow to adopt or skeptical of online learning will be compelled to take the plunge that progressive businesses took a long time ago. We're not for a second minimizing the value of face-to-face learning as part of the broader training mix, but a lot of legacy businesses and industries are still very much stuck in the classroom boardroom mindset as the natural go-to when it comes to training, when this should increasingly be the exception and not the rule. Online learning seems to carry this unfortunate stigma with it. People, particularly in big companies and listed companies, associated with tedious compliance training, otherwise with this low-quality, high-volume, go at your own pace, or in technical, in L&D parlance, we call asynchronous learning, that are characterized by low uptake, low completion, poor outcomes, and as such a poor return. So we often kind of encounter that sort of reluctance or hesitancy, and I can assure you that online learning there is certainly a slice of online learning, and we're all familiar with it, that is like that, but it's coming on in leaps and bounds, and that is increasingly a smaller and smaller part of what's available. Many of the seaters have started to embrace online learning and programs and are more and more comfortable with accredited programs being run digitally, so certainly consider that. And finally, the CHE, the body which accredits public universities and private institutions like Red and Yellow, has given permission for all contact or campus-based qualifications to be delivered digitally or remotely, which is really, really exciting. It's a very bold step forward. At the moment, it's just a temporary measure, but we really hope it sticks because we think it's going to have the power to transform how we all study, not just in the workplace, but also at a tertiary level. I'm now just going to quickly run through a couple of slides that these are snapshots of actual learning that is happening at Red and Yellow at the moment. These were all taken in the last week, and hopefully what I'm trying to bring across here is it's maybe a quiet little plug for what we do, but also just to show you that online learning is not just the stuff that you think it is and that you might have been used to. So our full-time students at Red and Yellow have adjusted very, very quickly to remote studies, and although we believe that a strong digitally enabled blended approach to learning and development is the ideal, from this point forward, we're an even more digitally first school than we were before. As I said, all of these are kind of live examples of what students are experiencing. It's very, very mixed, very, very rich, and wonderfully immersive and engaging. All lecture facilitated. Some of it is a little bit more coordinated, available across a range of devices. The benefits of online learning, hopefully they are self-evident, but certainly worth running through them. It's getting better and better. Not only are people rapidly getting used to and thriving on it, but as the world digitizes, we just increasingly have less choice. It scales, it's cost effective, content can be delivered wherever you are, whenever you want access to it, and formats that work best for a student's particular learning style. It means working from home like we all are right now. It's perfect for that, but in many respects, it also is our only viable choice right now. There are a near limitless range of options to choose from, and it's far less disruptive on day-to-day work. So this is by no means just a kind of trying to blow our own horns here. There are a load of other online learning options and training providers available. More and more they're coming out, which is fantastic for everyone. If you haven't embraced or accepted it yet, there's no better time than now, particularly if you plan on hitting your skills development targets this year. The next one, hopefully goes without saying, but is a question that comes up all the time, and a lot of companies miss out on this. For the more experienced guys, you'd be surprised. CETA funding. The deadlines for submissions have been extended to the 31st of May, so you still have a couple of days to get yours in. If you haven't, you just need to be compliant to be able to apply for funding. So firstly, if you aren't compliant, get your submissions in, hustle, give us a shout afterwards. We might be able to assist or connect you with somebody who can. Just by getting your submissions, you're able to get some cash back, which is critical at the moment. The other thing I would encourage companies to do is we have some small clients who have been getting fantastic funding approvals because they ask for them. And we've got some bigger clients who get far more limited funding approvals, probably because they're being a little bit more circumspect in what they ask for. So what I would strongly recommend is right now, ask for more. Ask for a lot. Even if you end up getting funding that isn't necessarily going to directly benefit your own staff, apply for bursary funding. That bursary funding will help you get your skills development, will really help you amplify your skills development spend and help you towards your targets. Remember now 2.5% of your 6% of livable payroll needs to be, or livable amount needs to be spent on bursaries. So this is a way of, for effectively a cash neutral and cost neutral way of getting your points by leveraging CETA funding and helping South Africans in need get an education. So very, very important. Rudy mentioned that we ran a webinar on this 2 weeks ago. It's available on our website. The URL is at the bottom of the screen, or I'm sure if you've Googled Red and Yellow CETA funding, you'll probably find the webinar. I think I'll ask the chaps also to include this when we send out the follow-ups. Next, retrenchments and restructuring. As I mentioned earlier, we've had quite a few creative clients come to us to discuss how they can balance the need to spend on skills development with declining staff count and really, really tight cash. And we've been able to formulate some neat solutions with them that tick a few boxes, particularly where they're either having to slash working hours and pay, but also where they're having to let people go. So, for example, with a retrenchment, this typically results in big upfront costs and cash outlays for companies before they actually start to see the cost savings. we've been able to structure volume course packages and discounts with favorable payment terms for clients who then include the courses in the retrenchment and settlement packages that they ultimately reach with their affected employees. This has the effect of ensuring that an employee still gets full value for their package, partly in cash, partly in training that's going to help them either up or reskill to set them up for better success in the months and years ahead. Whilst at the same time, it helps the employer reduce the total cost and the upfront cash outlays for the business. And because they're investing in training, they can recognize the portion of that relates to the skills development or the training towards their skills development targets. So if you can get buy-in from your employees, this is a really compelling win-win situation under very difficult circumstances. With remuneration adjustments, the process works similarly. An employer might be able to defray the full impact of a salary or an incentive reduction for an employee through subsidized training. But once again, if you purchase on favorable terms from a training provider. So this might also be an excellent use of an employee's time where they're not as busy as they might otherwise be. And the salary reduction comes with an opportunity to up or reskill, and the employer is able to reduce some of the cost and structure more favorable payment terms. So once again, you're able to count the skills development costs towards your skills development targets. Now, this might not be appropriate for every single business or for every single situation, but it certainly is something worth exploring and thinking about. So if you are needing to do this, if you're in the middle of it or you need to think about it again, think of how you can bring training into structuring your packages. And if we can help in any way, please just drop us a line. We're only too happy to have a kind of an initial conversation where we just kick a few things around and hopefully come to something that works. And then the meat of skills development, accredited programs, and more importantly now than I think, well, I mean, they're always important, but your category B, C, and D programs. So these are the programs where you get your salary recognition, and this really allows you to absolutely maximize the amount of spend that you're able to recognize from with spending as little well, hopefully with as little cash as possible. Now, what you really don't want to be in a scenario is spending R1 million, is needing to spend R1 million to get R1 million worth of recognition. And often these B, C, and D programs, we'll get into the definitions, learnerships, apprenticeships, and internships. Often you think about them, they're often, you imagine these classroom-driven things with large numbers of either unemployed learners or employed learners. This is starting to move online. We've got some fantastic online employed learnerships where effectively you can look at your existing staff, put them on an employed online learnership, get them to learn critical skills, and at the same time as you're recognizing just the cost of the program, you're also recognizing their salary for the full duration. So, a very quick example, if you were going to spend 50,000 Rand on a learnership and you're going to put on an employed learnership online, which runs like a regular online qualification, for the most part, there's a few seated bits and pieces that we would look after with you, but you would then also be able to recognize 12 months worth of salary. So if the employee is on 20,000 Rand a month, times 12, 240,000 Rand, plus the 50,000 Rand for the cost of the course, you're getting 290,000 Rand worth of recognition for 50,000 Rand worth of spend. All right, I'm just going to run through some key terms. I'm going to keep these quick. We'll share the doc so you can get into this, but really it's just to explain the context. I know that these do cause confusion for many people. So a learnership, it's a work-based learning program that leads to an NQF qualification, can be unemployed or employed, and the standard length is 12 months. An internship is an opportunity to integrate career-related experience into an undergraduate education by participating in planned supervised work, and this can be anywhere from a few weeks to 2 years. It's often thought of in the context of a grad program or similar, but this is a bit more structured and accredited. Apprenticeship, which is very much relates to trades, a program that combines theory, practical work, and workplace practice in a chosen trade field. And in the case of a listed trade, ends in a trade test and an artisan certificate of competence. Now, these three internships, learnerships, and apprenticeships, the common elements there are a combination of theory, combination of workplace and work integrated learning that results in a qualification. And you can see why hopefully you can see why they're popular. They're about equipping somebody with skills, and then either creating them or creating employment for them or getting them ready for employment. So very much the darlings of the skills development in the CETA world. And if you're looking for points and funding, these are the sorts of programs that you should be looking at, and increasingly looking at how you do these online. A skills program, another accredited program. It's a unit. It really is a portion of a qualification. So it's involves a unit standard or combination of unit standards that leads towards an employable skill and earns a credit on the NQF towards a qualification. And standard length there would be 1 to 6 months. Accreditation. There's a concept that is very poorly understood. We have students asking us regularly, is the course accredited? Is it accredited? What they're actually, I think, for the most part, outside of the BEE landscape or outside of the CETA landscape and learning and development community, is they're actually looking for endorsement or recognition. And that doesn't necessarily need to come from an accredited body. They're just looking to see that there is substance or credibility or value behind the course that they're doing. But an accreditation, in the sense that we're talking about here, is a program is where on doing a program, a student earns at least a credit on the NQF towards a qualification, and accreditation is awarded to a training provided by an authorized body. The bodies that you would typically look to see here, these are the ones that red and yellow is accredited with. And there are a couple of others as well. SACWA, where the qualification is registered, DHET, where the training provider is registered, and then your ETQAs, MICT CETA, and the Council on Higher Education, which looks after public universities and private institutions. All right, so that's accreditation. The learning programs matrix, the Rosetta Stone, the Bible for skills development. This is a very, very summarized version of it, but broadly, this breaks down every single form of training that a company can do in any way into 7 different categories, 7 different classifications, starting at the top category A with your very high or purely theoretical and full qualifications, very, very structured, all the way down to category G, which is your very unstructured informal training. So if you think of that analogy of the jar, I hope everyone's familiar with it, where you start with the big rocks, then the little rocks, and then the sand that fills in all around that. The category A, your bursaries, your full qualifications, those would be your big rocks. Your F and G training, those would be your smaller grains of sand and that fill in everything. All of these combine to form a learning development view of, well, a learning development framework. And all of them have their place and all of them are important. And they carry different advantages. So your categories A to E, these are your accredited training. This is your accredited training. This is where you get 100% skills development recognition. So when you've got your 6% target, as long as you're spending on here, you can recognize everything up to your 6%. Well, you can go beyond that, but you can recognize it all. And you're also likely to get CETA funding. You're more likely to get CETA funding for this. For the most part, CETA won't fund unaccredited programs. So this includes bursaries, internships, apprenticeships, learnerships, and skills programs. At the bottom, your categories F and G. These are your unaccredited training initiatives. And this is where you're capped at 25%. So out of that 6% of your levyable amount, which effectively equates to 6% of your payroll that you need to spend on training, you can only spend 1.5% of that on unaccredited training. And this is seminars, workshops, unaccredited short courses, and on-the-job training. Very important not to neglect this, particularly at the moment, particularly where budgets are tight. It might only be 25%, but you want to get the absolute max out of this, because this is where you can use your existing resources, your existing infrastructure to get these points. And then focus, as I mentioned earlier, on your categories B, C, and D. This is where you get to count your salary costs. So critical that we focus on there. I think Rudy is going to speak about some of the employed learnerships that we've got a little bit later. They're a fantastic way if somebody needs to upskill, we put them on a program. We've got a couple that are starting next month, and you're able to continue training online, get your salary recognition, and get really, really good bang for buck from your skills development spend, and potentially also get the CETA funded if you get your applications in on time. All right, I'm going to quickly run then through the skills development element in the BEE codes. This is from the generic code, so there will be differences for sectors. And then just going to quickly discuss some of the tips and recommendations. We have been through a number of them already, just to finish off before I hand back to Rudy. The first thing we need to focus on here is that our 6% that we need to spend. This includes changes that were made and went effective from December 2019. Your 6% of livable amount, your 6% of your payroll that you need to spend on training, and it is now broken down into 3.5% on accredited training and 2.5% on bursaries. So that is an important thing to bear in mind. If you are able to apply for bursary funding from the CETA, that's a great way of making sure that you are hitting your targets without having to incur any additional cost or losing out on any cash. And that's something we would love to help you with if you are in need. People with disabilities, 0.3% of your livable amount you need to spend on employees with disabilities. Learnerships and internship. So this is a percentage of headcount. The previous was a matter of spend. This is actually a headcount number. So this is a number of people. Number of Black people participating in learnerships, apprenticeships, and internships as a percentage of your total employees. This needs to be 5%. So these are your category B, C, and D programs where you get your salary recognition. So not only are you getting your headcount points, you're also getting your salary recognition. Important point to point out there. And this doesn't necessarily need to be unemployed people as well here. So we can look at, when you're looking at learnerships, look at your employees as well. And see who would be suitable to put on these sorts of programs. Absorbing your learners and interns at the end of the program, this is going to be hard because you can only absorb somebody who was unemployed before the program started. So this isn't going to be suitable for employed learners or interns. There's 5 points here. You know, this unfortunately, I mean, we're all in the space at the moment. I don't think anyone's going on outside of certain sectors, and no one's going on massive hiring splurges. We are dealing with massive unemployment issues. So, you know, whilst it would be great if everyone could employ as many unemployed people as they possibly can at the moment, I appreciate this is very, very difficult right now. So if you are looking at your points here, if you're wanting to score 5, you know, only hire or take on those unemployed people where you are confident that you would be able to absorb them. So you're probably going to be looking at smaller numbers for now, and still making sure you hit your headcount numbers by compensating with current employees and putting those on internships and learnerships. All right. Transformation through training. Really, this is how we look at delivering smart strategic investment in a structured way that ladders up to your not only making sure you achieve your skills development targets, but also how you build robust businesses and create career paths for individuals. And this is a pyramid that we really like to put out, and it really informs how we structure and put our programs together so they ladder up to great things, starting at your new entrants, your learnerships and bursaries, and then as people come in through the organization, they join your internships and apprenticeships and then move up into junior and middle management, where you've got your a mix of accredited and unaccredited programs. This is where probably the bulk of your training should be spent. Training budget should be spent. On the accredited side, employed learnerships, category B programs, skills programs, bursaries, and then obviously a mix of unaccredited all the way up to your execs and your senior managers. Now, the tips and ideas, what we can do during a lockdown. I think I've probably spoken through most of these bits and pieces during the course of this, so this really is a capstone. Start by asking the hard question: can you afford to drop a level or two in on your BBEE scorecard? If you can, I would obviously hope that would just be a temporary measure. I'm certainly not advocating that anyone rolls back their transformation plans, but exceptional times call for exceptional measures. And if you can afford to drop a level or two, it might be worth considering. If that, so that's the first kind of big fundamental question to ask. Next, CETA funding. You've still got a couple of days. Hustle, get that in. If you are compliant, do it. If you have already submitted and you have put in letters of intent, put in more. The worst that can happen is it gets declined. At best, you get more than you had initially planned to ask for. Online programs, the future is online. Start now.
Online learnerships are here to stay. We're very excited about this. You get your salary recognition, you get your headcount recognition. Online internships and category B programs, you can also look at your salary recognition here. And we've started to do a lot more in this space as well. And we're having great success in delivering blended versions of these, with a combination of online courses with webinars, which is working very, very well. Webinars, get your staff to log their time on webinars like this, record your costs, log times. The webinar functionality is fantastic. You're able to pull registers of all your attendees. So, you know, this manual kind of handing around a thing to sign at the end, it's all replaced by this. It really is fantastic. Technology is wonderful in this respect. And then internal training, record all your internal webinars. This seems like, it might seem obvious, maybe it's not, but we realized after running the first 1 or 2 sessions internally and externally, ones like this, a webinar like this, we are recording this. This will now go into our induction pack. We will induct all of our new people when we do start to grow again massively and to bring new people into the team. We will use this as induction material, and all of these then can go into your kind of your training banks. Your facilitators can draw on them, combine them with notes and with the stuff that you're with the deck. It means that you're not having to run the same workshop over and over again. So for anybody who's doing training, this is really is a godsend. And we're very excited for ourselves about this, but we strongly advocate that you look at this as well. And then internal training. There's a lot of it happening at the moment, probably more so than most people realize. And we run a series of learning circles, 2 that I've kicked off at the start of the year and which have continued to run now, and are really great just from a bonding perspective as well. There's our sales and leadership circles. And these are peer driven. We get together, we spend half an hour or an hour researching a topic and talking about it on the sales side with our sales team, and on the leadership side with up-and-coming managers or great talent. And we have a cup of coffee and a good chat. We can log those time. We log that time. We've got the registers. We can record that. That all counts towards your category G training. All right, and then the final few tips: affordable online courses. There are so much available for every single budget at the moment. And so people have got time. I encourage you to have a look at some of those and how you can bring those into your training, into your training plans. So combine them with some of your own internal facilitated sessions, structure them in a way so that you're able to get people into routine, regular webinar sessions where they've done a bit of training in the background and now you're engaging with them. And all of that stuff, the time invested, the management time and facilitation time invested in putting those things together can count towards your targets. Retrenchment and restructuring, we spoke about that. Think creatively about how you can structure your packages to include training. And this can save you cost and cash through negotiated terms. And even if you don't save anything, you can still recognize this towards your skills development. And we'd be happy to have those conversations with any of you. Negotiate favorable terms. Added value, discounts, payment plans, those sorts of things. You should be looking at those with your training providers. Everyone's looking at those with their suppliers. Every client is asking for those. And then another thing that's often is neglected. Think about what your business does and how you could potentially trade that with a training provider. Trade exchanges, value for value without cash changing hands. There are any number of opportunities available to look creatively at how you can do these sorts of things. All right, that's me. I have run quite on. Hopefully, Rudy, you can race through the product stuff. We can get to some Q&A. But if we do run out of time, we do have a hard stop at 11. Send through your questions and answers. We will make sure that we get back to you individually. And if there are questions that we think are worth sharing with the broader audience, we will also share these too. So, Rudy, over to you.
Thank you very much, Andrew. Firstly, well said, and thank you for all those tips and ideas, of course, as well as unpacking what most people tend to struggle with in terms of wrapping their heads around when it comes to BEE. I know I do at times. I am very cautious of the time. We have about 7 minutes left of the webinar, so I won't be racing through, but I will certainly be just going through as quickly as possible. just to make sure that I cover everything from my side. And I will just remind everyone just to please don't forget to pop your questions in the Q&A section. If we don't get to it, we'll definitely try and address it individually after the webinar directly to you. So which naturally brings me to my next point in terms of how can we help you transform your team and organizations and make the process of BEE as painless as possible. To that end, I'm going to just briefly take you through a range of our solutions that we have. I know Andrew has spoken greatly in terms of each of these individually and the benefits that you can take away from them. But we also have online short courses, and they do include accredited options. We've come a long way when it comes to delivering online short courses in the past couple of years. These are offered frequently throughout the year. Something that we obviously pride ourselves on is our uniquely human touch when it comes to student support. And leaving our students feeling rather empowered to be able to apply their learnings immediately at their workplace, which for the business is great because it means return on investment can be recognized almost instantaneously. And then we have a bunch of online courses that are coming up from next week, including our very famous digital marketing professional course and the graphic design, just to name a few. I do encourage that you check out our website for more info on all the courses that we are offering and their respective start dates. Moving on to skills programs, we offer a range of blended accredited skills programs, like our Art of Management, really exciting, especially for young and upcoming leaders and managers. These kind of programs, therefore, under Category E, and we run them over, as Andrew mentioned, anywhere between 1 to 6 months. And what's even greater is that these include practical and sector-specific workshops that are blended in there for delivering highly impactful outcomes. Again, a great benefit for the organization. Amongst other benefits that comes with taking up skills programs, workshops and webinars. We have a host of interactive workshop topics that we have obviously come up with over the years, which are outcomes focused for your teams. This list is constantly evolving, and I will encourage you as well to also get in touch with any one of us. If you have a workshop series that you'd like to explore specific to your teams, we can always put something together there for you and walk you through the process and ensure that you get the most out of that. Learnerships, very excited about these. We have two types of learnerships. These can be either an employed learnership or unemployed learnership. They fall under Category D or Category B, depending. And as Andrew mentioned, learnerships also include salary recognition benefits. Now, these work-based learning programs, they run over a period of 12 months, have massive BEE benefits, tax and CETA as well for your organization to take advantage of. I'm excited to tell you that we have two very interesting ones coming up very shortly. The Digital Marketing Employed Learnership, which kicks off on the 22nd of June, as well as our 21st Century Leadership, which starts on the 29th of June. And then finally, bursaries. Every year we call on corporate South Africa to come on board in terms of sponsoring a pool of remarkable students that we obviously have attending our full-time programs and to help them realize their potential and kickstart their careers, really. At Red and Yellow, we have a social promise where at the very least, 10% of our full-time students do not have to carry the burden of paying for tuition fees. So far, we've been very successful in this. We, in 2019, almost hit 20% of our students not paying for their tuition. And that was mainly because of corporate South Africa coming together, as well as obviously recognizing the need for transformation in this country. So we see bursaries as contributing massively to transformation as they afford students access to tertiary education that they normally wouldn't have access to. And in addition to this, your organization can obviously then earn those BEE points. I did almost forget about this one, but custom programs, if you're looking for something a bit more tailored, And then I would certainly encourage you to get in touch with us as soon as possible. We can always try and put something that's fantastic, that's more tailored for you, and of course, rip the benefits of having that. We'll hand over to Andrew to see if there are any questions that we can get through right now. We have about 2 minutes left, but otherwise, as I mentioned, if we don't get through to your question, we can always get in touch directly to you after the webinar. Over to you, Andrew.
All right, thank you, Rudy. We've got quite a few questions, and I'm being flagged by our organizer Bjorn that we actually need to start wrapping up now. So I'm going to answer just one, and what we'll do then is for everyone who's asked a question, we'll pick up privately with you, and where the response is of interest, where you think the response is of interest to everyone, we'll share that response with everyone. So hopefully we can all learn through the process. The question I'm just going to ask quickly, I think I've addressed it during the session, although I'm not 100% familiar with the register functionality of the particular platform, but that is from Paul, who says they've recently moved across to virtual training via Teams to carry on with training. How do we suggest we keep attendance registers as the people are spread across the country? Now, this is something I'd be very interested to hear what the verification agent community would like to see here. What we're thrilled about from our side, and certainly what we're going to be advocating, is the fact that the webinar functionality is actually able to keep a live register of everyone who's signed into the to the session. So, you know, at the end of this, we can pull off a complete listing of every single person who's attended with all your contact details, and that's for anywhere in the world. We've also got a recording of this, so we know exactly how long it was, we know exactly what was said, we know exactly who engaged with it. So, you know, if you are going to be doing virtual training, I encourage your participants to firstly to stay on for the duration, but also then to engage actively via chats and engagement in that sort, so you can actually see who's engaging. And then what you've got at the end of it is a perfect digital record of the entire session. If a verification agent ever wants to sit and challenge you on it, you can just play them the video. And you've got the login details of everyone who participated. So we certainly, what I certainly would suggest is that do have a chat with your verification agent or be a consultant to see if there's anything else that they would like to see in this regard. But we're really excited about just about how much the functionality of a lot of these platforms actually enables a lot of the record keeping and the audit trails to be retained. So I appreciate we've gone on. I know I tend to get quite excited about the stuff, and I did go on a few minutes longer in my presentation than I would have liked. So for the individual Q's and A's that we didn't, or the Q's that weren't A'd, I'll make sure that we pick up with you individually after the session. But thank you very, very much, everyone, for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. As I said, if you've got one take up that's going to help you rethink about how you plan, and that's going to help, I'll be thrilled to hear it. But good luck. Get hold of us if we can help in any way. We would love to help you if we aren't already doing so. Have a fantastic Wednesday, and we'll see you at the next webinar. Goodbye.